Good afternoon, my name is Mike Dalziel. I'm part of the Drennan RAF team squad, and big shout out to Trevor Price, who's asked me just to cover off some traditional waggler fishing really that can be extremely effective at alders when fishing pines and alders, and ash, and of which one opens on both lakes fishing this method. What I'd like to chat to you about is obviously the fundamentals of how I set it up, rod, balance, reel line, and the little intricacies that I use. I've been fishing this method and I've been setting it up in this way since I was about 14-year-old, which I'm now 44, so it hasn't really evolved that much in my eyes, but the principles are very important that if you get right when you're fishing for skimmers and bream, is that the rods are proof in the section winds that I've had at Castlashby and the results that I've had in opens. So going through the gear itself then, so the first thing I look at is the rod, and my rod selection is an Acolyte 13-foot Ultra, which is the softest rod that Drennan make in the Acolyte range. Reason for that is I want a lot of tip action, so that when you're pulling into them bites, and whether it be a 6-ounce skimmer or a 3-pound bream, you've got a cushion element, and you're not just going to bump the fish off or potentially snap a light hook length when you hit into a big bream. Also moving on, when you're fishing at alders, yes, it might be a light rod, but it also offers a little bit of cushion in the middle section so that you can get them winter carp in the 2 to 4 pounders. And if it was something I was looking at fishing for summer, then I'd be looking for the plus edition, and I'd upscale it that way. But for the winter, it's perfect. Again, it's all about balance. Moving on to the reel, just a 3000 reel, and I've got on that load on that was 3-pound floatfish, which is Drennan floatfish line, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a perfect line for float fishing. I usually treat it with a little bit of washing up liquid diluted down, so it's not too strong, and that'll just assist with the signal of the line when you cast it in. So certainly if you've got torn, or you've got a little bit of extra water circumference. So what the rod offers, it's light, versatile, soft, and it's still got that little bit of gauge in the middle, which will give you, when you're pulling in them big bream, or whether you've got a 2 or 4 pound carp. Moving down the setup then, the float selection. So the float selection I use is a float I've been using for best part of 30 years, and that's the Drennan floatfish. Drennan crystal giant wagglers, and the range, there's 5 in the range. I've only got 4 here. The range starts from a 2 AAA, goes up to a 3 AAA, which is that one, 2 swan, 2.5 swan, and then the 3 swan, which is the biggest one they do. What these floats offer is they're quite a dumpy float for what you get. Just a 3 AAA float. It's not very big, in lengthwise. But what it does, it gives you stability when you're fishing in shallow water like Castlashby is. Certainly the bream pegs, it might only be 2.5 foot deep, so you don't necessarily want a float that big sitting in 2.5 foot deep when you can get away with a float that big, that can do the same job, and obviously stops when you're casting in the float going too deep. Loaded wagglers, a lot of people use those, but again, personal preference. I personally believe that they go in the water too deep. They seem to take a little bit longer to cock than a normal shotted waggler does. Obviously when I'm casting this in, it's finessed in, and your hook length goes over the back of it, so you stop it just before like you would with a feeder, and your hook length lands in the line, and you can see all your droppers lined in, and then that will slowly go through the water. There's a lot of fish that you catch at alders on the drop, fishing full depth, and also at Ashby, for all it's only 2.5, 3 foot deep, but numerous occasions I've caught bream fishing 5 foot deep in 3 foot of water, and you catch them on the drop. So it's it's certainly proof is in the rewards of what I've done, and it's bizarre sometimes how fish feed. So that's the float choice. My two go-to floats to start with would either be the 3 AAA or the 2 swan, slightly a little bit heavier. It just gives you a little more stability if you need it with the wind, or if there's excess tow on it, and give you more opportunity to put extra shot down the line, certainly if you're fishing in deeper water. So they're the floats. Moving on to the way I shot it then. So as we say in Blue Peter, is one I've done earlier. So I'll just run that onto my hand. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. Right, so what I've got there, so this is the 4 AAA, the 2 Swan Waggler. So I've got your 4 AAAs there, and I've got a number 6 checker, which that just takes it down. Then I've got 3 number 8 stots, which hopefully you can see just there. Now what they do, they offer 2 things. The first thing is, what I want is the float to shot up only right down to about that. So if there's any lift bites, I can see them. And again, usually you'll get like a little touch before it just slides away. Another option it offers me is to utilise them shot as like a mini bulk half depth if I need to. I can just slide them further down the hook length or further down the depth and sort of put it to half depth. That'll just prevent the float from moving. If you've got a lot of tow on, you just need to be, your idea is what you're trying to do is get that stable. You don't want it bouncing through and towing because it's not natural to the fish, and 9 times out of 10 the skimmers and bream won't pick it up. You'll get the odd one, but from my experience, you need to really pin that. So that's what they offer, 2 things. Moving down, which is probably something that not everyone does, is there's the hook, and there's the hook length knot. Okay, so that's a good close to 2 foot, 18 inches to 2 foot. The reason why I have it so long is because I intend to have most of that on the deck. And with it, I have 2, with it on the hook length itself, I've got 1 number 10 there, which is about 8 inches from the hook. And then I've got the second one there, which is again, is about another 8 inches from the hook. I then put on another 8 inches from that, 2 number 10s. And what that does is just give me stability to try and pin the hook length itself. So for all it's laying on the deck, with this being the hook and this being our 2 number 10s, most of this is actually on the lake bed. And the float will, with the toe, will naturally just tighten up, and you'll see it all the shot will kick in and the float will come down and then pin, and then it'll just stop. And what you tend to get is you'll tend to get a little lift, and then it'll just go under, as where they've dislodged the first dropper, which has then allowed the float to tow a little bit. As a roll off fish, 18 inches over depth. And sort of that's my go-to start. Obviously, if you're missing bites, you're not seeing bites, etc., then you adjust. But that's where I would start. And to enable that, all I do is I just plumb up with a very little, just with a single AAA, shot your float, and then just put single AAA, usually just above the knot, onto your main line. So you're plumbing up to 18 inches depth, and all I'm looking for is just to find the bottom. As soon as I find the bottom, I then mark it on my rod, so I know exactly where the true depth is, and then go along from there. Sometimes I've found you get better bites fishing 2 foot over depth. Sometimes you have to fish a foot, and it's sort of horses for courses as you're fishing. And again, this is for skimmers and bream. The principles of which, or how I sort of perceive it to be why, is that you've got your hook length along the bottom, and bream tend to feed like that. So your hook length is doing that, and your float's here with the toe, and so that they're not feeling any line in that. There's no resistance, and your hook length is nicely on the bottom as if you're fishing a little feeder. You've got everything stable there, and then the actual bite indicator is really subtle, so there doesn't feel hardly any resistance. If you were to fish full depth and your float's there and this is the bottom, and the fish are trying to, you're fishing straight down, then you're going to get line indications. The fish will be a bit spooky, like they can be at Cash Lashby. So it's what I've found. It's really important, and at times I've fished 5, 6, 7 foot deep in. I might only have 3 foot of water, and again, it's all about trying to stabilise the float, and also, at the same time, finesse it so you're still getting bites. Again, with the option of just having those 2 number 10s just there, if that isn't enough to stabilise, you either do one of 2 things. One of them is you put more line on the bottom. If you already sat there 18 inches, 2 foot over depth, then that's where the little bulk of my 3 number 8 stots, which is sat at the float, which is sat just there. That's when I'll slide that down, and I'll put that half depth, whatever half depth is, half true depth, and then I'll have another 2.5 foot below it, at least, which will lay on the bottom, and what that just does, it'll just pin the float a little bit more. The other added, if that's still not working, that's when you start your main float's not heavy enough. If you were to use heavier line as your main line, as in like £4 main line, or, you know, whatever it is, then that's going to pick up the tow even more, which is going to affect the float and affect your presentation, which is why I only use a £3 line when I'm fishing like for the skimmers and bream, like I do in Ashby or winter. So the hook itself is just a Drennan silverfish pellet, size 18, and I've usually got on that either a piece of sweet corn, maybe a couple of dead maggots, or even an expander. What I'm fishing for, you know, in Ashby, either skimmers or the bream, and depending on where you draw, it may be more skimmers than bream. Just on the last year, I had 3 section wins, and every one of those win I caught bonus fish on the Waggler, you know, and that was in it up to 10-15 pound of skimmers on it, on top of all your pole fish. So it's a really important method, you know, that reaps its own rewards. You've just got to be patient with it, and when they're there, you know, then it's fairly easy. So that's the Ashby setup. Moving on to Alders. Alders is principles virtually the same. So I fished a match on Pines. I think I drew 2 or 3 pegs up the left bank, just off the sandbar that's there for those that know Pines. So it's 2 or 3 pegs on the left, and I had about 7 foot. So what I did is I plumbed it up like I would do on this, and again I fished a foot over depth. Line wise, instead of it being 3 was 4, so I'd stepped up the line, and instead of it being like a 0.10 hook length, which is what it would be for Ashby, I used Suplex 1.3, or close to 1.3. It's £3, so I used £3 hook length, and again that was 2 to 2.5 foot hook length, which if you're using more hook length, obviously you've got a little bit more give in it as well. And again, I think it's about 7 foot deep, and I used a 2.5 Swan Waggler because of that extra depth. A couple of, again, number 10 droppers like what I've got there, no difference, but I just had them strung out a little bit more. And I was catching all my carp in the last 1.5 foot, so it was literally as it was going through. On the hook I had a 16, fished with 2 or 3 dead maggots hooked in the head, and the idea of that, just nipping them in the head, was one, to have plenty of hook showing, so when the carp come in, you know, you're not going to have the infamous maggot over the tip of your hook, and 2, what I was trying to do was slow the rate of the sink down of me hook bait, whereas if you just started a single maggot, it'd probably just go through the water a little bit less fluttery than what 3 dead maggots would, to try and hold in the water as long as possible to make the amount of time I was fishing on the drop as maximum as possible. A loose bed maggot over the top as well, because there's obviously a good head of skimmers in there and perch, etc., and there was odd carp feeding on the deck. So then, you know, what I then do is, once it did at the bottom, obviously it was just conventionally fishing 1.5 foot over depth, and then you know, I was picking up odd fish off the bottom, whether it be skimmers and odd carp as well that were actually feeding down there, and then just recast every 5 minutes or so, and then refeed. I did it halfway through the match, go to 2.5 foot deep, which what that did was just maximise that fall, so I've got more line falling through the water. But it's really important that you stop your float when you hit the water, just before it hits, like you would do with a feeder. You feather it in, and what that does is just collapse the Waggler, hits the Waggler slightly on its side, but minimum disturbance, but your hook length lands in a straight line, as I mentioned before, and you can literally virtually count all your droppers as it lands, and then you hook it at the end of it. That means that you're fishing straight away and you've got a straight line like you would be laying it in with a pole. So yeah, so that's pretty much the setup. So just to run through, 3 to 4 pound main line, depending on what you're fishing for. You're looking at floats wise, again depends the depth, the tow, etc., but you're looking maybe use 3 888 to 2 swan as a go-to. Fish 18 inches over depth, plumb that over depth up as well, so that you know where you're starting at and where your true depth is, so when you start moving it about, you know what you are. You know, number 10 droppers, really important, and then I just have like a little 2 number 10s there, old stots, and then just go from there really. What you'll see, your bites aren't quick, your bites are really subtle bites. You'll get either a little lift or sort of just a little touch, little dip, and then it'll just slowly slide away, and then you just gently lean into them. Really lovely days fishing, and any place that you've got near you that's got a good head of silvers and it's not overly deep. You know, either loose feeding maggot or sweet corn. I use quite a lot of Cash Lashby. You'd be amazed on your results of what you get. And that's it. So thank you for listening. Obviously it is funny times at the moment, and I'd just like to give a shout out to obviously all my work colleagues, etc., that are in the forces doing their bit, and also to my wife Elaine, who's I know Trevor's done some shout outs for her, and I thank you for that and the support that I've seen from social media. She's currently working in the Royal Free in London, you know, taking it to the front line as an anaesthetist, working with COVID patients all the time. So hard times for everyone. Stay safe and hopefully see you back at the bank soon.